Islam, 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 and welcome to MHHS-Eyes Wide Open. This is your host, Anita Ill, along with my co-host. Let's see if I can find Ms. Raheem Olive Ill and RVBey while I'm waiting for Ms. RVBey.
Islam.
Islam.
Islam. Peace and love to all.
Islam. All right. I am trying to find Ms. Raheem Olive Ill. Did he press the... There he is. There he is. Islam, Ms. Raheem.
Islam on the E. Peace and love. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you just fine. I am not sure if Cujo is going to be joining us today because they seem to be having some internet problems.
Yeah, and internet and phone. Mercury, man. Mercury in retrograde.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, they got like
that's right.
And that Moor been going hard lately. I think the universe is telling him to just take a little time out or something because he's been going super hard with getting over to YouTube. I don't know what's up, but I trust that get back in line. But for sure.
Right. All righty. All right. Well, I don't see Cujo, so let me see if I all right. Well, let me get started. A big shout out to our internet listeners. The chat room is open. The chat room is open. Big shout out to our family listening over in Great Britain, Japan, the Netherlands. Let's see. Oh my gosh, South Africa, Mexico, the Philippines, Venezuela, Brazil, and also family we have yet to connect with. Peace and love, and thank you so much for joining us. Big shout out to our callers. Thank you so much for calling in every week, filling up the phone lines before the show even gets started. Thank you so much for that, for joining us, building with us, lending us your energy. It is so greatly appreciated. All right, so what we're going to do now is each week what we do is a public service announcement, so to speak. What it is it is a public announcement of Moors who have been kidnapped by these corporate employees and held hostage for ransom. Many of us have been absolutely misinformed as to who is who and what is what. And, so we have been mentally conditioned and mentally programmed to believe that county, city, town, township, boroughs are government, and they're not. They are corporations. And so these employees of corporations are literally kidnapping the Aboriginal indigenous people off of the land, and they're holding them hostage fraudulently and collecting income based on these fraudulent charges. So what we do each week is we make an announcement of those Moors that we are aware of who have been kidnapped and are being held hostage. So we start off with our sister RVBey, who was kidnapped through a joint venture between Memphis and Shelby Corporation under the purview of Tennessee and we say purview because if we don't have the county corporation, then what we do is we make just an announcement of the union state that the corporation is in purview of. So we have, like I said, we have RVBey, kidnapped through a joint venture between Memphis and Shelby Corporation under the purview of Tennessee. Daoud Ill under the purview of Arkansas. Amir Moslamin Ill under the and Kusu Ra Kushbey under the purview of Missouri. Atsar Patan Amin Rabe under the purview of Ohio. Jeremy Paler Ill, Terry Thorne Bay. J. McCall Brooks Bay, Joseph Kanaday Ill, Kush Amir Bunch Ill, Emmanuel Billings Bay, Yassin Khalik Alamin Ill, and Michael Curry Bay, all kidnapped under the purview of North Carolina. Noble Crisco Ill under the purview of New Jersey. And then we have Messiah Aziz Ill and Crystal Ill, both kidnapped through a joint venture between Mercer, Freehold, and Trenton Corporation under the purview of New Jersey. And we don't have an update on Patricia Bay's baby as yet, but the baby was kidnapped by the Atlantic Corporation under the purview of New Jersey. Eldridge Teron Fisher Ill and Marquis Sevion Ill under the purview of Indiana. Solomon Ill Bay, Mumi Abu Bay under the purview of Texas. William Barrett Ill under the purview of Virginia. Bumani Abidwil Ill, kidnapped by Chesapeake Corporation under the purview of Virginia. Che Ray Bay under the purview of West Virginia. Thomas Lee Bay under the purview of California. And Victor Eduardo Avaya Juarez Ill, kidnapped by Harlem Corporation under the purview of Georgia. All right. So those are family across the nation that we are aware of or have been made aware of that has been kidnapped and is being held hostage for a demand of income. Now, if you have a family member or some more that you know of and you would like them added to this weekly weekly announcement of Moors who have been kidnapped and are being held hostage for income, send an email to MHHS-Eyes-Wide-Open@gmail.com, and in the subject line put kidnapped Moor. If you have the county, that corporation that has kidnapped them, that would be most valuable. If not, just put the union state that the corporation is in purview. All right, so before I get started, I just want to let everyone know, let's see, where are we in the week? Tomorrow we will physically be at the National Theater near Harlem at Northwest Amexem. Doors open at 6. Class begins at 7:30. That is Wednesday, May 11th. All right? All right, so this week's broadcast is entitled, it's an old subject. You know, we really don't do anything new. We really just reiterate the same thing, really, because nothing really has changed, really. It's entitled, Do You Know Where You Are? And it's in conjunction with the first rule of law. And the first rule of law is identification. However, you will never be able to identify all parties until you first research who they are, what they are, and where they came from. Until you do this, you will always be spinning your wheels, thereby missing it. And what I mean by that is, I know, me personally, I have been saying for some time, people, you need to do research in terms of who are you dealing with. If you don't do the research, you're not going to be able to really put into effect what's really going on. You're not going to be able to make the distinction. You know, you can't just say things and assume that people are going to get it. You have to tell your story, and you have to tell it in such a way where if someone who knows absolutely nothing about you or the what's going on over on this continent, if somebody on the other side of the planet Earth gets a hold of your writ and they begin to read it, they will get exactly who the parties are and what is going on, and they will get exactly why the people of this land constitutionally secured liberties as well as basic human rights are being violated on a continuous basis. The only way that you're going to be able to demonstrate to the world what is going on is if you first do some historical research as to who you are dealing with. And I keep telling people, we're so far behind, you know, and we're catching up, and we're doing a good job of catching up. But I remember even myself, I submitted writ, and the party that I listed as the one who was violating my liberties was the state, and that was in error. It was never the state. It was these county corporations. They're referred to as municipal corporations. And, you know, I keep saying to people over and over again, you have got to go back to 1774 and research the climate, what was going on at that time. Because if you do that, you will find that the reason that Constitution, that great document, that great law, that law of the great peace was even put into written form was because corporations were infringing on the basic human rights of people, not Moors, but those other citizens. But if it had not been addressed, it would have bled into the Aboriginal indigenous people of this land, which it subsequently did do because we got so busy fighting each other, you know, that the elders got killed off, which left the babies, and then the modern Europeans took the babies over and started miseducating them. So today we have a lot of people across the nation, around the world even, who literally think that corporations are government, who literally believe that the state is a corporation. The state, which is a corporation, is sovereign, which actually believes that the federal government, which is a corporation, is sovereign. The only, and you have to understand what sovereign or sovereignty means. The only people on this continent, this land here, who is sovereign, meaning how you are tied to the land, is the Aboriginal indigenous people. And that's what you got to keep in mind. When you hear the word sovereign, the question that is being asked is, how are you tied to the land? Now, let's look at this. People have this misconception. It's absolute miseducation. They say things like, oh, the state is sovereign. Okay, let's look at the state. How is the state tied to the land? Well, that's an excellent question, and it segues right into what I what we are wanting to present today. Now, I'm going to do a piece of a presentation, and then we got Sister RVBey, who's going to give you some additional information on the historical reference of a certain location. Now, I'm going to talk about, because I've done a historical reference of New York in a previous class, but I'm going to do a historical reference of what they call Connecticut, because it was so amazing what I discovered. And this is why everybody needs to do this historical reference, so you can document. This is not N.E. making up anything. This literally is a matter of public record. That's why it is imperative for people to do their research, because you've got to know who is who and what is what, and how their place and yours in the scheme of things. I drafted up this, what I call historical reference of Connecticut, Hartford, and Connecticut, Hartford, East Hartford, Manchester, because they're key in the Connecticut Company. All right. Now, Connecticut, the Connecticut Company. I want you all to pay attention, because we run around here and we call states government and counties government, and they all had their beginnings as a company. And guess what? They are still a company today. It doesn't matter even if they incorporate, because the Constitution was written to keep those companies/corporations in check. So you got to know what you're saying when you make a presumption that you're dealing with the government. The government is the people. It always has been, and it always will be. So we have the Connecticut Company, which was established in 1662 via a royal charter from Charles II of Great Britain. That's absolutely foreign, all right? Then the three companies that would comprise or be sub-companies of the Connecticut Company are the Hartford Company, the Wethersfield Company, and the Windsor Company, all established and originally governed by the Massachusetts Bay Company. These are all companies. You're not dealing with government. You're dealing with companies. Call them what they are. The governing powers or executive board of the Connecticut Company was called the General Court, that's C-O-R-T-E, consisting of 6 executive officers. In 1639, the fundamental orders were adopted and the name was changed to General Court, C-O-U-R-T, and changed its executive officer membership to be called and consist of a governor and 6 magistrates. Did you just see what I just? This is not a public record. I'm not making this up. The Charter of 1662 changed the name of the General Court to the General Assembly, deriving its authority via the Royal Charter from Charles II of Great Britain. Then I gave a footnote. A royal charter is a formal document issued by a monarch as letters patent, granting a right or power to an individual or a body corporate. This is right out of the dictionary. They were and are still used to establish significant organizations such as cities with municipal charters or universities. Charters should be distinguished from warrants and letters of appointment, as they are perpetual effect. The British monarchy has issued over 980 royal charters. Of these, about 750 remain in existence. Charters continue to be issued by the British Crown, a recent example being that awarded to the Chartered Institute for the Management of Sport and Physical Activity on 7th of April, 2011. So now all those people that's all about the sports, the football, the basketball, the whatever, you know, it has its management over in Great Britain. All right. Now, next, the Hartford Company was established on 10 May 1666 by the General Court. That's C-O-U-R-T. It was originally the Newtown Company under the control and authority of the Dutch Republic. However, when the Europeans began arriving in 1637 and took over the Newtown Company, the name was changed to the Hartford Company in honor of the English town Hertford, H-E-R-T-F-O-R-D. The Hartford Company was incorporated in 1784 and had jurisdiction in matters of commercial matters only. This was right in their charter. Today, the Hartford Company still functions as a corporation with a sole emphasis on the generation of revenue as a result of commercial matters. This is historical relevance or reference, historical reference, because the reason this is important is because it is the employees of these corporations that is accosting and violating the people's basic human rights as well as their constitutionally secured rights. If you do not draw this out, people will continue to think that you're dealing with lawful government as opposed to foreign companies / corporations. This is why I keep saying you've got to study, you've got to research, and you've got to draw out the historical reference of who you're dealing with. You're not dealing with government, you're dealing with corporations. If you're dealing with corporations, where the hell did they come from? How did they have their start? All right, so next we have the East Hartford Company was established and incorporated in 1783. The East Hartford Corporation had a sales territory that encompassed the location today referred to as Manchester. The Manchester Company was established in 1672 as a sub-corporation of East Hartford Corporation. At this time, it was known as Orford, O-R-F-O-R-D, Parish. And there's a footnote. Hold up. Black's Law Dictionary, parish, in English ecclesiastical law, a circuit of ground committed to the charge of one person or vicar or other minister having care of souls therein. The precinct of a parish church and the particular charge of a secular priest, an ecclesiastical division of a town or district subject to the ministry of one pastor. In New England, a division of a town, originally territorial, but which now constitutes a quasi-corporation consisting of those connected with a certain church. Oh, my God. What does that mean? That means that anybody who is presumed to be members of Hartford, East Hartford, or Massachusetts all fall under the jurisdiction of a religious church, that religion being Christianity. Now, for those Aboriginal indigenous Moors who have proclaimed their nationality and profess to be of the Islamic faith, that is a First Amendment violation. All right? And when they try to impose their because what they do is they try to impose these so-called taxes on you, which maintains their Christian company / corporation. That's a violation of your First Amendment right of free association and religion. How would you know that if you don't draw out the historical reference? In 1823, the Manchester Company incorporated and became a separate corporate entity from the East Hartford Corporation. All companies and corporations have as at their head a chief executive officer. For these municipal corporations, there's a footnote that gives a definition of a municipal corporation. English law, a body of persons in a town having the powers of acting as one person, of holding and transmitting property, and of regulating the government of the town. Such corporations existed in the chief towns of England as of other countries from very early times, deriving their authority from incorporating charters granted by the Crown. Oh, my goodness. What did that just say? For these municipal corporations / quasi-municipal corporations / municipal domicile, the CEO is called the mayor, and the vice president is the alderman. Alderman also denotes an earl in English law and is a title of nobility, which is a violation of the American Constitution, 1791. They tell you this right in the definition of earl. They say it's a title of nobility. So if earl is a title of nobility and alderman denotes an earl, anybody in any county infrastructure that is called an alderman just received the title of nobility, which is a violation of the American Constitution. Now, in every charter of incorporation issued by the Connecticut General Assembly, the first article almost always identifies the county, city, town, or borough as a corporation. As of the American Constitution, which was adopted in 1789 and ratified in 1791, all county, city, town, borough charters and powers became void, as the American Constitution, 1791, is the supreme law of the land, and statutes are simply the administration of the law affirmed in the supreme law of the land, the American Constitution, 1791, of which all Union states must be in harmony with, as all states have only executive powers per Article 2 of the American Constitution, 1791. Now, that is a short but to the point historical reference of Connecticut taken out of Connecticut in America, which is a British book that gives you all of the to-dos about Connecticut, the Connecticut Company, as well as Hartford, East Hartford, Manchester. All of these are corporations that came out of the Connecticut Company, which the Connecticut Company came out of the Massachusetts Bay Company. These are all companies. They're all companies. But if you don't know that, you will make a presumption and you will call them names that denote lawful government. Lawful government. Now, these union states, according to the supreme law of the land, they are all obligated to protect all people, regardless of nationality or religion. They are mandated, they are bound to protect all people from the foreign and domestic invasion. And so if you want to show treason, you have to draw out the historical reference. It has to tie into how they even got here for you to show how a company today is presumed to be government and have powers greater than the people. That is so absolutely unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional, but no one will get that if you don't draw it out. You've got to draw it out. Islam? I'm going to yield the floor for a minute so that, either Roz or Ms. can make a comment before we bring in Sister Jayana, because she's got some amazing information to drop, which should inspire everybody to go and do research about the corporations and union states that they are near. because you cannot present a claim unless you do the historical research and put it in a format where if anybody anywhere reads it, they can say, oh, wait a minute, this is a company, this is a corporation. What are they calling them government for? You got to be able to show that.
Islam. You know, you just said it in a nutshell, man. So many people, they'll call them government. And I just emailed somebody because, you know, we both be emailing people things that really the things that we be emailing is what ends up going into our books and stuff because we're explaining something, right, or gets posted on the site or whatever. You know, they'll call them government, and then they'll say, just the other day somebody said to me, it doesn't matter who it is, oh, yeah, that's my government name. So I wrote back to them, I said, don't you ever call that your government name because they're not government. You know, the people say that and they give them this power that they don't have. Now, we understand why we do it. We're not, trying to point fingers and make people feel bad, just trying to wake you up to the fact that that's very, very real. These people are not government. And if they were government, what would they be governing except for themselves and corporate board members? Which can't be you.
Right.
This is the whole point about jurisdiction. That like even if they were, but see the problem is that our lack of knowledge of understanding these governmental matters and political matters. Like some people say, well, I'm going to stay out of politics. Well, you know what? Your nationality determines your political allegiance.
That's right.
So staying out of it is just a 180, as Abdullah did last week when he was talking about the 180-degree turn they've done on everything. So by saying that, good, then you're going to stand out. But that very reason is why we as a people who think of ourselves as Negro, colored, black, and whatever we're going to be called this month, this year, whatever, don't have any political power. Don't have any civil liberty. Our civil liberties are clipped because the nationality determines your political allegiance. So your political allegiance would be to this Moorish nation with the ancestral estate being the American land, period. And there goes your tie to the land that you spoke about. And then your civil liberties wouldn't be clipped as they are because you say, as you just said, if you say you are a member/citizen, same thing, or one of these corporate entities, union state, which are really corporations in charter that you just proved, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then that means that you just clip your own civil liberties. Because you
That's right.
That's why Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, I come to teach you to be yourself, and honor your mothers and fathers, right? And that go back to the mindsets of your ancient foremothers and forefathers. And then you will be able to be yourself. But no, we want to be members/citizens of a union state, or excuse me, not even that anymore, of a corporation or a charter that is English law. This is American land, not England. The other thing is no one looks at the American law or the Constitution. And they look at English law. Well, why do they look at English law? We're not English people. I mean, that's not what, just because they, came over and set up companies and stuff, this is not England. So that's the other thing that cuts us off at the knees. And it's only because of, as you said, there's no thorough study. On the history of who was who. And, you've been saying that for a long time. And sometimes we say it in unison. As soon as you hear it, it's like a mantra. You just got to know who is who and what is what, right? And that's
right.
So the simplistic thing, we're talking jurisdiction. We really are talking jurisdiction, but many don't know what jurisdiction is and what it derives from. It means right words. It means right words. So wrong words are to say that you're a member/citizen of a union state, or what we now know is simply a charter. And we didn't find out it was a charter. It's still a union state that you cannot be a member of. Those who peruse through the original 13th Amendment should figure that out. But I know some people who peruse through the 13th Amendment, declare they stand on it, and still don't get it. You know what I mean? They still think that you're supposed to be a member of one of these union states. But that was established for those foreign families. That was not established for the Aboriginal Indigenous family of Moors. It just was not, and it makes a lot of sense when you understand the succession of things. Like, we said it before, Articles of Association, Great Law, Peace, the treaty itself, the Constitution, all of these things. And, it shows that the peace that everyone is searching for and keeps saying they're searching for has already been established. It was established, and the American National Constitution for the United States of America, which houses the foreigners, is that document to bring peace upon everyone. And we keep looking for peace somewhere else when that document brings the peace, which is the reason why it's so important to enforce it. It is absolutely established under common law, under it's religious, in that it is established in the principles, spiritual principles, and or divine principles. So it's really a religious document. But if you know what a religion is, it's not a religious choice. But many don't get that, what religion is either, which is what really interjects and keeps us from moving forward. So the peace research we already have, if we would just go ahead and strengthen and enforce that which is, and I say that too, that some people think that the Constitution will be removed. I'm going to say this. Someone told me today that there's a lot of stuff going down in South America. They're kicking the IRS out, the corporations down there, right? And they're going to be marching themselves back up to the North American continent because they're all established there, but not so much that they're going to be coming because they have a long arm that reaches here, having you pay taxes to them when they are nothing but an accounting firm. That's what they are. They're an accounting firm for hire. So they're not government is what we're saying. So now if they can't make any more finance and they're being disbanded where they were created in Guam, Puerto Rico, and some other places, right, which are all corporate, they're going to come back to you, my brethren and my sisters, and brothers here, and try to rape the hell out of you now because they are losing something. And if we're not on point with what's being shared, we will be royally raped. Royally. Yeah. Not that we haven't been, it's coming. This is what is coming. And now when the other citizens, remember, we're to enforce this Constitution, which is the law of this land. I don't care what nobody try to tell you because they have not studied enough. See, some people say, well, they suspended it. They're idiots to tell you that. Excuse me for saying that. I don't know who they are. They have not studied jack to even say something like that. So when what is about to happen is what we all have been prepared for. But here's the thing, or ought be prepared for. You have got to be on your ding, or else you're going to fall. That's it, and that's all. That's it, and that's all. It's not even judgmental. It's not judgmental. It just is, because that's your only chance. Only chance at this is to have knowledge and to enforce that which is the law, because really you're the law. Each one of us is the law. So that's what's happening. And now those people who have no knowledge, who think that these people are the government, they're going to get swallowed up. Swallowed. They're going to be gone. You ain't going to see them no more at all. I mean, they're just going to get swallowed. But there's others who are coming up on wanting to get straight. So let's make it simple. Government is family. They are not your family. They are not your government. Mm-hmm. But more importantly is that we established a venue for them, if you will, or a jurisdiction for them, indivisible, to share this land or to occupy this land. That don't mean they own it. Nobody really owns it. So more importantly is that you do not make the mistake that has been made over generations to think that they have some ownership or claim to this land. That's where we're failing, And even those who say they study nationality principles and also Prophet Noble Drew Ali, especially them who say that and don't read chapter 47, where it clearly tells you that this is your ancestral estate, that you will gain back in a conflict that cannot be told in words. See, even they don't even see. And they say they study that this is the land. You know, this is the ancestral estate. So why do you keep acting as if it belongs to foreigners? And that is exactly, well, you know, it's their government, it's their land. This is really New York, and this is really New Jersey, and this is... No, it is not. It is not. We have said before in classes to try to explain territorial jurisdiction, for instance. And that is, like they'll say, you know, in the jurisdiction of the city of Calverton, you were speeding on Fifth Street. You got to come back and trump that territorial claim by saying in the jurisdiction of my ancestral estate / national domicile, North America, I was traveling. You don't even realize how strong that is. But that is the territorial claim that they tried to make on you, but you never rebutted it, not by arguing it, but just by making the claim from your own lips. Because, see, if you confess it, it is considered done. It is so motive fee. And if we all did that collectively as a family, this whole thing would be shut down tomorrow. So, because many are across the nation from four corners of the earth, what's happening is they are being shut down. But for those who don't know, they're going to be dragged down with them. And they use that coding in the Biblioheliothex, which is an elementary astrology book that many call the Bible. They say that, quote unquote, the devil is going to hell and he's to the pits and he's going to drag everybody he can with him. Well, that's what it's meant. It's the lack of knowledge because, you know, there is no devil. It's lower self-activity, and we've been steeped in lower self-activity. So lower self-activity is going to the pits of hell, and it's going to take everyone else who's still hanging on from that perspective with them. Be you, not that you mean to, but you're lacking knowledge, you're gone. Because the game is chess, not checkers. I'm telling you, it's a very serious time right now. And what I'd like to say, too, is, look, don't be looking for other people to be able to save you. Unfortunately, you have enough information. Even the prophet said it. He said, listen, I have given you enough information to save an entire nation. All I'm telling you to do is go out and save yourself. He didn't say go out and find somebody else to save you. So there's a lot of our people who are, amen, right? There's a lot of our people who are indoctrinated into thinking I'm going to go call the attorney and, you know, look, that don't fly up in here. You know, you have to, if you're looking for your savior, look within yourself. If you're looking for your, quote, devil, look within yourself as well. But it doesn't fly. You have to have knowledge. You must have basic, what we're talking isn't even complicated, although those listening think that it is. Oh, yeah, I want to know what you know. Oh, yeah, I want to be like you. No. This is elementary. Wake up. This is elementary. So what's being dug up today and expressed or shared today is the elementary recorded facts, that you tie to the elementary fundamental information that you have. Now, I just want to lastly say this one thing, and then I know Ms. may or may not have comment, but I want to say this. Everything that's being shared today that is showing you that these people, these associations that you call government, they are not government. They are not. Those who call themselves government today, there's even a case law that says they are but, I don't have it with me, but we read it before, and it says that they are just corporations. They're artificial, whatever like that. They have no parity with the real. What do you mean parity with the real? You got to first claim that you real flesh and blood being. That's what it means. Yeah. It means no parity with that which is real, because corporations are not real. It's like a fake flower, you know, artificial flower. You don't water it because it's not real, but you water the one that is. All right, so that's what it means. those who are calling themselves government, but it's an assumption that you, the people walking, living, breathing on this earth plane, know what government really is. And that crap can't be your government. It's not, because it's not family, because society starts with family. So does the authority of the government, as Ms. brought to our attention when you did some research there. Love that one. But I want to say this. The information being shared here is to prove that these people are not government. Now, if you still want to believe their government, look, that is your conscious choice. You know, these are the crossroads that we're at right now. And if that's the road, the side of the cross you want to be on, so be it to you. We're going to keep doing what we do. And you and others are going to keep doing what they do. And we know that this thing is going to, like Prophet Noah Ali said, it don't matter what it look like. It's all going to be in the hands of the Moors. So I want to just read this real quick, and then I'm gone, because what's being said today will get you to understand that these courts that you think are courts can't be courts for many, many reasons, the same reasons being shared today. They're not authorized. They have no delegation of authority. They are not courts. We don't even really care whether they got it from Congress, didn't get it from Congress. They're not courts. They can't compel you anyway. And so we say that to say that when you understand who they really are, you will definitely understand why you would just not even be bothered with these people, because they can't compel you to be back, because you got to see them for who they are. You know, and if they did do something with you, you know, under threat, arrested, coercion, or gunpoint or something, I mean, you know, hey, something else got to be the answer for that. And we're not going to discuss that today, but I just want to say this. What is being said today will set you up for all these court battles you think you're having. You're not having court battles. I mean, not in a real court. That's right. And you're just not. It's all a facade, man. We all have to wake up for real, for real. It's a facade. And if you know this, it becomes on your dial plate. And when it's on your dial plate, you can dial it right up when you need it, instantaneously on your 2 feet, without a piece of paper even, and without somebody else telling you, because they can't. You have to know. So I just want to read this. It's going to take a second. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislator. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities, Burns versus Stuck. The first issues to be considered when brought before a court is to determine if the court is valid in that it has judicial authority, and if you yourself are really in the court at all. And this goes hand in hand with what's getting ready to be shared with you today. If the municipality or the state or, you know, the county is a corporation in a charter, there's no freaking way they got a court. They got you coming to on Tuesday, Wednesday, or whatever, is a court. There's no way. It's an impossibility. They don't get that. Grants of judicial authority, period. So even if they were a lawful court, the next question for you would be, is whether or not they have subject matter jurisdiction in regards to whatever the subject matter is at hand. Now, this would all be unveiled in what is called a delegation of authority that they would have to produce in order to operate as a court in the first place. So if it doesn't exist, there's a case law that says if they don't have it, and they don't produce it, that means they don't have it. That means they're not a court. Do they ever produce it? No. That means they're not a court. This is why this delegation of authority must exist. So, if it was delivered to you or produced as it should be, there would be no need to debate these facts. You know, you would have to wonder whether they do, whether they don't. Just produce it, let's go. You know, that's it. And since these matters of jurisdictions cannot be cured by mere wanting it, they have to show it so. Mere wanting. They want jurisdiction over you. Oh, yeah, they do. They don't show it or produce it. And when I say jurisdiction, I mean delegation of authority as a venue, court venue. But we know they're not. They never could be. They could never be our courts even if they were a court. But I'm just saying this is how it goes. These things are established so that we have knowledge of it, so that we won't be molested by these people, which is what has happened. So the question to ask yourself, especially after listening to this broadcast, is, are you being exploited? by private agencies, corporations, associations, and their affiliates, pretending to be lawful, all due to your own lack of knowledge. That's all that I'm going to say, and let the rest of it speak for itself. Islam.
All right. Islam. Before, because I know Ms. wants to say something, and then we're going to bring on Sister Jayana. But before we do that, I just want to make one reference, because a lot of people, they get this so twisted. You know, the prophet said, study, study, study. He said it for a reason, because if you're not studying, you're not going to get some very significant key points. A lot of us, we hear, this is a matter of the national and international law. National law. Why is it? Because you're talking about government, but what is government? Government is family. The word government and family are synonymous. How do you know that? Because the United States of America is a nation that was established for the modern Europeans who did not have a nation. And nation, we said national, nation, international, nation, they're the same. All right? So what nation do you belong to? Is like saying what family/government, they're both the same, interchangeable. What is your family government? What is your government family? If you say that you are a member of a European family, you just threw yourself out into the abyss, because you cannot be a carbon-based divine being and be a member of a non-carbon-based family. They just do not go together. Therefore, that can never, ever, ever, ever be your nation, and that's what Article, the original 13th Article, Section 12, is talking about. It's saying you can never be a member of the United States of America because that's not your family. All right? And you got all of these people who are so totally misinformed about true biology. They think, if I hook up with a European, I'm now a part of the European family. Or you got Europeans thinking, if I hook up with a carbon-based Asiatic being, I'm now a member of the Asiatic family. No, you're not, because it's all about the blood. And the blood comes from the mother. And so this is why there was the law of us not mixing the family blood, not because you're really mixing the family blood, but because it's just going to cause great confusion as to who is who and what is what and where you fit in the scheme of things. These things you must comprehend, because if you do not comprehend it, you're going to not get what nation means. You're not going to get what family means. You're not going to get what government means. And you're going to make incorrect statements that trump jurisdiction. Islam?
Islam, indeed. Indeed. All I would like to add on before the sister goes in and we move forward is that in correlation with what you were saying, what my mother was saying about family and government being synonymous, I just want to say I will definitely be continuing the preview on Are You in Denial of Your Ancestry Part 3 tomorrow. However, in light of that, there's an aspect that I have to expound on in this particular literature. But I will be giving a presentation. And the reason I say that is because I had another anamnesis that stood out to me that I have to share with the family, correlative to family, your family, direct, being the government, all correlating with the fact that tomorrow, one of my ascendants it's the Earth Day, or would be the Earth Day of one of my ascendants on the matrilineal side. And I'm more than proud to make sure I expound on this particular aspect of family being government. And the reason why is because while we was down there, I met an old soul born the same year that Prophet Noble Drew Ali passed, 1929, still living. She was beautiful sister, highly angelic energy, shall I say. But one of the things that stood out to me was the last name she was branded with was Beavers. And when I thought about the fact that we come from the same lineage, but she had a wild appellation like Beavers, it took me back in correlation to certain history in North America relative to the Beaver Wars. You can research that, the Beaver Wars. And it hit me that in correlation with the fact that she got branded with the last name Beavers in the aspect, I could only correlate that to that coming from the Beaver Wars, whereas a Nam de Guerre means an artificial name, a war name, or one assumed for a time, relative to how that relates to people in their proper person today. You know, people get branded from appellations of wars. So the Beaver Wars correlating to how she got that last appellation has to be a derivative. But what is interesting is the fact that, and Ma, you could vouch for this, the fact that when you consider what they call the Beaver Wars, it's relative to area today that's called Ohio up into Canaan land. This is correlative to what Sister is going to be dropping tonight, and I cannot wait to get into learning from that. But that's my piece on it, and I really want to listen to what has to be said about that area, because all of that, you know, going back to the French, the word Nam de Guerre is French. And a lot of people got hit up with Nam de Guerres from different wars, different battles, conquests and takeovers. So as we all relate to that on a national scale, we have to realize, where did these Nam de Guerres come from, you know? Because I have certain people in my family who the Nam de Guerre was derivative of people who they call the Mohawk, but we know that we're not Mohawks. We know that we're not, you know, tribes. We're a nation. That comes first, the government first, before you fracture different branches of a nation in different places. You have to realize it's a whole, and tribes do not equal the nationalities. But for sure, with that, I want to yield the floor, and I look forward to adding on. But I'm definitely open to learn tonight, so I yield the floor. Islam.
All right, well, we are going to bring in Sister Jayana so she can drop some historical references on us. And you know, I would encourage everyone to do what I had done, what Sister Jayana had done. And you know what would be a great thing if you do that historical reference of the area that you are at. I would suggest, well, it would be a great thing if you let us know, because then we can, we can bring you in and you can present it to the family, and that would be a great way for everyone to share in the information. So if anyone is everyone is interested in doing that, please let us. Or if anyone does that, please let us know. Send an email to MHHS-Eyes Wide Open and just let us know. And also send an outline of what you've researched and what you would like to present. And, you know, we will have people across the nation do a presentation so that, you know, we can all learn a little bit together. All right? So let me see if I can get Gianna back here. Hold on a minute. Uh-oh. All right, hold on a minute. Hey, Rob, can you just make mention of, I'm sorry.
Yes, I got you. I was on mute and I didn't realize it, but I got your text. So what I want to do is, yeah, I was talking to Auntie and said yes, I will do so, and I was on mute. So I'm just
wait. I think Gianna, are you there, Gianna? Gianna?
All right, you got to try to get her back.
Okay, you continue talking, and I'll try to get Gianna back.
Okay. All right, not a problem. I'm going to finish with what I had started to read because it's so, and what I'm reading is something that I wrote in response that I sent to someone that is probably going to go in a booklet that I'm doing. I want to also say, since we're saying that once you recognize that none of these places are, that none of these people are government, they don't have any jurisdiction, right words for you. You need to have the right words for them, though, that's for sure. And when you don't have the right words, which is what jurisdiction is, juris being right, diction meaning words, what they do is they call themselves sentencing you with words. And that's what they've been doing all along. That's what it's all about, you know. So when you recognize that none of them have this authority over you, over your family, all right, or over any nation of people, then you recognize that these so-called venues and courts, so-called courts they set up, are also just as fraudulent as they are, saying that they're lawfully delegated anyway. So what happens is, hold on, either Gianna might have to come on. Hold on. Yes, sister, are you there? Oh, shucks. Darn it. I missed you. Call back again, or call on Mrs. line or mine again. I just tagged you a little bit too late. She's trying to call in, unless you want to text her and tell her to call in on yours. So let me just finish until we get going with that connection again. I think she dropped out. She can't get back in, so we got to call in on the host line or call her in on the host line. So once we realize that they're not, yes, do you have her?
I have Gianna.
Yes, you know what? I just realized, I said, wait, who's calling my phone? And then I had to grab it. So if you have her, we'll let her go ahead and to take her breath, I guess, and go into presenting her information that she so diligently studied, you know, and found out to share with the family. And as you said, if we all would look at this in these respective union states, really, you just covered it anyway. We'll see what it is all about.
Yeah.
Islam.
Islam. Islam.
Yeah.
Hey, finally.
There she is.
Right. All right. Yeah, that was really weird. As soon as Mia said, I'm going to use the floor, my phone said, "Dude," and I was like, wow. Well, so
I was a powerful yield, right?
Yeah, that was really, So for people who may not know, I'm going to be talking about the area today that they call Ohio. in the state of Ohio. And I'm just going to give a brief background of it before I actually get into the real making of the state called Ohio. So the Ohio Company was actually originally in 1754, between 1754 and 1763, it was called the Ohio Company of Virginia because it came out of the Virginia Company. And it was actually a land speculation. There was a company organized for the settlement of the Virginians in the Ohio area. And actually, at that particular time, what we call Ohio today, it never really was that area. It was the area in Pennsylvania, actually. But the Ohio Company, and the trade, and it was with that company in 1754 to 1763, which was the Ohio Company of Virginia, and it was for Virginia's people to come settle in Ohio territory and to trade with the Moors in that area, known as today Ohio. It was a land grant from Great Britain, King George II, and it was also they made a treaty, and it really wasn't a treaty. It was actually called a permission, and it was a permission treaty made with the Moors in that area so that they could trade and do business in that area. Outside the area, if you look it up, it would say a treaty with the Indians, of course, but we know the Indians with the Moors. So where I'm saying Moors, if you look it up in history, or if you look it online, or if you go into the books or congressional records, they replaced it with Indians. But just because I know what I know, I just put Moors in my paper. So, but Moors mostly occupied in that area, and they what they call today Canada claimed that area too. And in the history, they will call these Moors from Canada French Moors, and also in this area too French Moors. But just to separate, really, when they put the names French Moors and Indians, or they wouldn't say French Moors, they say French, and then they say Indians. That's distinguish the territory that they in, but not really the people itself. So the Moors in Canada, which they call French, was not feeling this permission thing, but the European, they wasn't having it. So it just caused a big fight between the Moors in the area of Ohio today and the Moors from Canada, who already had claim of their land, and Mexico, Moors in Mexico today, which is called Mexico, who own part of the land too and did business in the land also. So they started fighting, and it just broke out in a big war. And that was the beginning of the 7-Year War. If you go into history, it's called the 7-Year War, or it's called the War of Conquest, or it's also, you may find it as the Fourth Intercolonial War, and that's the French and Indian War. That was the beginning of the French and Indian War. That's what that war was about. And that was the British Moors and Americans and other family members. All right. Then after that broke out, of course, the company, it wasn't no more. So then they had another, in the midst of all that, I already said it. So, yeah, while they was there, they made a fort also to protect themselves, and it was supposed to be, the land was free, was tax-free and rent-free for 10 years. All right. And then they signed the treaty or permission with this is called Longstown, with the same Moors in that area in 1752. That was another treaty. And then the first company was actually in West Virginia, which I was saying it was West Virginia, not in Ohio. And that first company didn't never even make it to Ohio because the Moors was kicking their butts. Like, it was bad. That's, like I said, it was the 7-Year War. They never even got to make it to the actual land, Ohio. It was like did some they went there and, try to calculate and make some whatever land stuff, but they was getting whooped really bad. That happened. And then so after that came the Pontiac Wars, and then later in 1768, which was about at the end of the war, so I was about to say 5 years later, the British government made another treaty, but this time it was with the Moors, and in history they sometimes call it the Five Nations, for purchase of land rights in accordance with the proclamation of 1763. Later in 1768, they formed a company. Now, these are the Europeans and Moors, both. These are all, so they formed a company called the Walpole Company, and it was supposed to give them 2.5 million acres of land, and that was also with Benjamin Franklin. He was one of the 72 shareholders, and it was also with Sir William Johnson and some other people. But mostly the Walpole Company, that was mostly British Moors and Moors that was in power, and Europeans. And then it was also called the Indian Company, and those was members of the old Ohio Company. And it was also, they all joined together, and it was in 1769 formed Grand Ohio Company. Now, this is another company. After all of that, these three companies came together, and they formed the Grand Ohio Company. And then in 1772, the Grand Ohio Company did receive from the British a grant, but by that time, the American Revolution War broke out, and nothing was accomplished, so that company just ended quick, 1776. Now, years later, Ohio Company of Association was another land company. And they that's when they started to settle in this area called Marietta, Ohio, today. And now that was when the new organized Northwest Territory came into about. And the Northwest Territory, of course, as people know, it was when they created the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. I'm going to go more in detail in that after I finish this little brief background. So in 1787, the Northwest Ordinance was created for the Northwest Territory, and then in 1788, a year later, they started the Ohio Company. It's called the Ohio Company of Association Land Company, and they started to actually settle into Marietta, Ohio. The Ohio Company was created in Boston. The creation of it started in Boston, Massachusetts, because remember, they companies, so just because it got the name Ohio, that don't mean that it was actually in that area today called Ohio. So all of the companies that started Ohio originally wasn't in Ohio yet because they couldn't reach that land because at that time that was the Northwest Territory that was called in history the Indian Territory. So they were still trying to get in there. So they made the Ohio Company, and one of the members of the Ohio Company negotiated with a member in Congress to secure the company as a claim for when and to be incorporated into the Northwest Ordinance. Made that negotiation with the Secretary of the United States at the time, so that they could, because at that time they desperately needed revenue, and they saw that area was a way for them to get revenue, so they had to incorporate it with the Northwest Ordinance. And then so this one, General Arthur St. Clair, which he at the time in 1787 or 1786, I believe, he was the president of the seventh president in the Continental Congress. So he was the president. Just to give a brief background on Arthur St. Clair. Arthur St. Clair, he was the president. He was a general. He fought in the war. He fought for the British Moors, and he was a negotiator for the Europeans. He negotiated a lot of their claims. He negotiated a lot of conflicts between them and the so-called Indian Moors, because he himself was a Moor, and he was very, very wealthy. And so they just looked at him as a person, that they can use as a middleman for all their negotiations. So they wanted to make him the governor of the new territory called Northwest Territory, which included Illinois, Ohio today, Indiana, Kentucky, all of that. And there was like 5 of them. So they made Arthur St. Clair the president. I mean, after he got done being the president, he became the governor of the Northwest Territory. As soon as he became governor of the Northwest Territory, members of the Ohio Company that was based in Boston, Massachusetts, made 2 contracts with him in that area, and this is when they actually started being in the area of Ohio, called Ohio today. They made 2 contracts with Arthur St. Clair one was for 1,500,000 acres, and also it was for them to secure, because at the time the Moors were kicking their butts, to secure them from slavery. This is what it was, for slavery, townships, and schools, and maintenance, and religious, and university. And so that company, now that actually is inside of, in the area called today Ohio, joined forces with a Moorish company, and they just basically only did that so that they didn't have to fight with them. But after they secured that spot, they basically bumped them out of the agreement in 1790. And actually, by 1796, that company didn't even exist no more. But 3 years later, Washington, Virginia, same people, Washington, but members of Washington, Virginia, Connecticut, and at the time Thomas Jefferson, who was the president at this time, they all had interest in this area because this area still had gold, copper, silver, and salt. I didn't look too much into that, but they needed this salt. They wanted this area, and that was part of that company that they joined forces with the Moors. That was their whole area that they needed to have. So Jefferson, the president, had interest. So in order for him, that happened. That's that. The company is over with, but not really. So now let's go to the congressional record. Now this is, the company ended in 96. 2 years later, they started giving petitions. Well, actually, that same year, 96, 99, and then in 99, and then in 1800, they started writing petitions to the Congress, Continental Congress, asking so that they could become a state. But the issue with them trying to become a state is the Northwest Ordinance and the Constitution was in effect at this time. And in order for them to become a state, they had to have 60,000 inhabitants at that time, but they only had 45. And also, they had to they had to have a constitution, they had to have a Republican form of government, and Congress had to approve, because in the Constitution it says that Congress is the only one that can bring somebody into the Union. They didn't have any of that. Congress did not approve. They didn't have 16 inhabitants, anything, but they just kept writing petitions. And they had to go through their legislative. And at that time, the Northwest Ordinance was governed by the governor, which is Arthur St. Clair, the legislator, the 3 judges, and one of the judges was Sims, who made a big purchase called the Sims Purchase, which also one of the huge purchases that got Ohio to become a state also. But when they say purchase in history, they never gave them any money. It was always 10 years of free, tax-free, to live there tax-free and to do business there tax-free for 10 years. But the reason why they wanted to become a state of the state was because they could tax the people, and they didn't have to pay taxes. But the issue with it is the people. They claim that the people, if you go to the congressional records, and that's the 7th Congress, that the people wanted to have a state, have it make a state, but the people, only 200 people signed it, and it was supposed to be 45,000 inhabitants. So the numbers didn't even add up to say that was the people's choice. So Arthur St. Clair, he wrote John Henry, which I'm about to read the part. He sent some letters to he sent letters to, because I don't want to say the name. He sent letters to William Henry. William Henry at the time became the chairman of Congress. So he sent letters to him telling him that these people do not want to be a state, and don't let it happen. He didn't want that. Don't let it happen. On top of, they violated everything in the Northwest Ordinance and the Constitution. So so basically he was just pleading to him to not let it go through. But unfortunately, everybody at that time, there was members. By this time, it was just a lot of. It was already people that was overthrown, and everybody in that, like I was naming before, Washington, Connecticut, they was all part of the Congress and had a say-so in it. So they all had their own agenda already, so it was very hard for him to get any type of role because it was only a couple of people left that was really going by law anymore at that time. So he sent a letter, and this is some of the things that was said in his letter. To Henry. All right. I thought I had it right here, but I'll just read it from the letter itself. All right. A division of the territory. Oh. One of the things he said is, okay, so one of the things he said is, it will be very bad to let a little money outweigh the welfare and happiness of the multitude of the people, and to remember the territory will require to be divided into 3 difficulty areas. Now, he said it'd be divided because they wanted the whole Northwest Territory to be Ohio. If they made the whole North Territory Ohio, then that would exceed the maximum amount to tax the people because it would be too much. The tax would be very, very large on the people. So the people, it was a couple of petitions from the other people that was actually Europeans that did not want it to be state because they were going to be taxed, and they said they don't want this government for a government that has nothing to do with them at all, or no benefit or no advantage to them. So why would they want him as a government? And this is the exact words I just found it. He said that he said these people, they will fall back into the situations from which they have left and just moved from, because they moved from the Virginia Company because of this stuff. They conceived it would be intolerable grievance to have their lands sold for the support. Now, this is the author St. Clarence speaks for the Europeans and for the Moors in the area too, to have their land sold for the support of a government from which they expect to receive little or no advantage. That's quote unquote. Because the people did not want them to become governor become a state, because they would tax the people and they would start using statutes on the people, and they already knew this was to come because that's literally where they came from in Virginia. That's why they moved the territory, Northwest Territory, because the Northwest Territory in the Northwest Ordinance had the right to govern themselves. The people had the right to their property. The people had the right to everything. But if they became a state, the way they were trying to become a state or a union, they wouldn't have a right to anything, and they would be taxed for everything, and they wouldn't have control over their property anymore. So, as I go to the so I was looking inside of the congressional records, the 7th Congress, and it was a big, big fight for this petition. I mean, when this petition came in, the first time it came in the 1800s, Congress literally ignored them. They didn't even give them they didn't even talk about it, because they was just like, that, you're right, there's no way we're going to make y'all say, yeah, it's a violation of everything, the Northwest Ordinance and the Constitution. So they didn't even give them. So 2 years later, Thomas Jefferson wrote somebody in there and urged them to, write Congress, because, he had to say so at the time he was the president. So they did it again and did it again, and then at that time, that's when Connecticut and Virginia stood up and was like, well, these people are asking to become a state, and so, if why not give them a state? Why not listen to the people? Why do we have to go through Congress if the people are asking for this and that? And if Congress don't, and they were trying to basically say, don't Congress serve the people? And so the next battle was from another person from another state representative said there's no way that these people will want to become a state because there will be no benefit to these people at all if they become the state. I mean, if that territory became a state. And so, and of course, it will violate the Northwest Ordinance, and it will violate the Constitution. And so, so then Virginia and them started arguing again that, well, technically, Northwest Ordinance was created before the Constitution, so they didn't make a pact with the Constitution. Congress only made the unions, the people that are unions right now, made a pact with the Constitution, but their only obligation is to the Northwest Ordinance, so they don't have to abide by the Constitution. And then an argument began again and said, wait a minute, the only reason in the Constitution it says that the ordinance was to be incorporated with it, so any agreements before that still stand, but the law of the land is the Constitution. And that's what he said. And so it was a big argument for at least 2 years on this debate. And finally, Jefferson just got mad, and the rest of them voted something, but they never voted to be in union. They just voted that they could make a convention and make a constitution, which at the beginning they didn't even want to do that. They said they didn't even have to. They were just so ruthless that they didn't want to make a constitution. They didn't have to become a Republican form of government or anything, so they weren't getting in no way at that time. So then they had to compromise and say, okay, we'll make a convention and make a constitution and make it a Republican form of government. And so they did that, and then that's when Jefferson came up with this act called the Enabling Act of 1803. Now, the thing with the Enabling Act is that it was unconstitutional for him to make the Enabling Act in the first place. And I think James Madison, don't quote me, it was some Madison, he was the president later on, I think it was like 3 years, after him. So it was like, that happened in 1803, he was the president in 1812, and he struck them all down as unconstitutional in the first place. So, but anyway, the Enabling Act came, and it was a statute that basically said that they could make a state, and the rest, they didn't do the whole territory, but the remaining territory was to go to the Indiana state, and that, basically they could become a state. So they did that, and basically they just started saying there was a state, but they wasn't. So Arthur St. Clair, he said, no, you're not a state. Y'all are not a state at all. That didn't do anything. Y'all still not part of the Union. And so then Thomas Jefferson got mad and just removed him as the governor. And then the process was basically, no, seriously, he did. And then 3 months later, they became a state. Now, the crazy part is they said they became a state, but then when you go and you look into it, in 1953, this is like 150 years later, it was an argument in Congress again that Ohio was not a state because Congress never approved them to come and form into a part of the Union. So in 1953, the president at that time, who was a former Ohioan, he was from Ohio and he became president, he wrote an act that basically saying that, well, Ohio is a state and they became a state in 1903. But he wrote that in 1803, but he didn't write it until 1953 when he became president, and there was another question came up just saying that, well, Ohio technically is not a state. And one of the members of the Congress said, well, if I have an outlaw or something to the state, if I have some type of outlaw here on the floor and they're not supposed to be here, then, basically whoop-de-whoop. And so the president got mad because he was from Ohio, of course. And so then he wrote that act saying that in 1953 that Ohio is officially part of the Union. In 1953, though, that Ohio is officially part of the Union, and, basically nobody can say nothing else about it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So that means that Ohio, because everybody knows that Congress adjourned in 1861, so technically Ohio is not a member of the Union state.
Well, no, it's not a member of a Union state, even when when Congress was adjourned, because they never initiated them into the Union state. They never did, even when they was adjourned. And then in 1953, he can't just make up an act and say, well, y'all part of the state. Because, like you said, Congress wasn't even adjourned.
Wow. That is amazing.
That might be
and
why.
You know what's yeah. Who was saying something? Somebody was saying something?
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, no, I want you to go ahead and finish what you were doing, but I remember back when things were hitting, one of the first municipal police departments that was being disbanded, remember, was in Ohio. They were like, you have absolutely no authority. Remember the police departments was shutting down?
Yeah, it was in Lincoln. It was an area called Lincoln
That's
Heights.
right.
Yeah,
That's
it was
right.
an area called Lincoln Heights, and they shut them down for being a gang. And
they're all gangs.
well, yeah. But yeah, that was literally, I remember that. It was an area called Lincoln, and believe it or not, some of the people, it was a area which were majority Asiatic, unconscious Asiatic people, Moors. And the sad part about it is their argument was that, oh, just because it's in the black neighborhood, they want to take the police away from the black neighborhood. Not knowing, really what had really happened, that it was a victory. And I noticed because I talked to those people in that area because I was trying to let them know that was a victory, and their argument was like, no, they just doing this because it's a black neighborhood, and they took the police out of the black neighborhood, and I was just like, well, whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Because it's crazy that that's their thought process.
Say that again.
What you said? It was crazy because that was the people's thought process.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
They ain't gonna get caught up in it. They didn't realize it at all what was going on, and that's the sweet, the indoctrination, that we're in, and we understand how it's there, but I know it's changing now because Ohio and also goodness knows about Detroit. That is so decrepit. It's just incredible how decrepit they are. Oh my God, how much they have fallen and don't know what's going on, and the people keep looking. Like you said, they don't even realize what it meant to get rid of those policing forces. And they looked at it totally different, that, as if they were really their government. But these are the same people who are killing your people, raping them of their liberties, and being trained to do so as a job.
Yeah.
They don't even see it. This is what the problem is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, I wanted to. Oh.
Take a closer look at the landscape all our lives on, and it all starts to look a little uneven. Every line fits with different era in our history. And
The crazy part is I don't know where it's coming. I'm trying to cut it off. Okay, so one thing I had shared with Sister Annie when I was on the phone with her, because as I was I've been doing this study of Ohio for a long time, and not just Ohio, just this territory, period. As Roz would know, I had like a whole history when she came down, trying to give her history. But it always, every time you get more information, you can always go back to what you learned from learning or from reading the Moorish literature and information that the Moors and Prophet Noble Drew Ali and CMA left for us. And so I remember years before, in 2010, I had read the Zodiac Constitution. CMA had wrote, and this would actually inspire me to start looking into Ohio. He had wrote the Doctrine of the Magna Carta for every angle, nor do not criticize. All right, he said that. Nor do not ever attempt to influence the white people to accept the oral truth and principles of your 12-sign zodiac constitutional law, because the Magna Carta is a Latin phrase meaning Magna Carta of white people's economic and social attraction only. So he said economic and social attraction only, which had its beginning in the colonies of Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, and Illinois in 1848 and 1854. So, you know, with that, I was, why did he say that? And after I got the information I did that they're not even a state, I'm like, oh, so it's just the attraction only. That's it. It basically is, it's a look, it's like a look, or what they say, colored. It appears to be something real that it's really not.
Wow.
Yes. Yes, you're talking about the definition of color, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that is so deep what you're saying, man, because as you study, as you said, you really understand why he said that. You know, color is something that's varnished, stained, or dyed. Why did he say that? Why is that in the 101 until you start really studying? And then you say, you go into the law books and you see that there's something called color of law, color of authority, color of office, you know, and then you look up what color of authority is, color of law, and they basically tell you it ain't the real deal, because anything colored, you know, is something that's painted over the original of what it actually is, you know, and all of the, and then the thing is, people think, oh, color of law, that must be for colored people. Well, yeah, it is if you're a colored person. You know, so it all ties in, you know, and you're right. You go back and you see it. You see it. You know, people wonder, like, I want you to give me a step-by-step, what it is, you know, and it's the information or education which really comes from within. The education comes from within, really. And you say, well, how is this done? You know, like how? And it's done the way that the prophet had already researched the information and said. You know, you have to be who you are, and that goes with the honoring of your own ancestors, because you can only be what your foremothers and forefathers are, and nobody can change that to that nature. So then once you do that, you have to go into the history to know who and what this is all about. You know, so it's a lot of information. It ties itself in, but there's those who approach this information with wrong concepts. It's called concept correction. And they really should give thought, like you just said, really give thought to everything that was put out, that was said, and try to make it make sense. And don't move forward until it does. I guess yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Because it does make sense. Good.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does. It makes a lot of sense. And, you know, like Sister Jayama said, if you read the works of Prophet Noble Drew Ali as well as C.M. Bey and the host of books that are on RVBey publications, then when you start doing the research around the area that you're near or at, you know, the land, because you've got to remember, you're always on American soil. And so what you're near, you know, it's funny because, you know, we're sitting here and we're talking about what they classify as Connecticut and even Ohio. These are not land masses. These are corporations. Right. And they have, and so when they start talking about, you know, you got.
Could you just say that again? Just say that Ohio, Connecticut, New Jersey, all these states, they're not what?
They're not. That's not. Those are corporations. They are on American soil. They have no territorial jurisdiction whatsoever. And to just give you an analogy or comparison, many of us probably have owned an automobile that was made by Toyota. Now, Toyota is a Japanese, Chinese automobile company on American soil. But wherever that corporation is, it is not called Toyota. It's called Toyota. It's on American soil, but it is a corporation. And what we have been mentally conditioned to believe is that we are on, or we are at Connecticut, and we have to realize that not only are we misinformed, but a lot of these police employees, they are misinformed as well. And when you go into some of these meeting rooms and you're having a meeting with these employees of these county municipal corporations, they have been misinformed as well. Because you will say, if you say to them, they're going to say to you, especially when it's regarding your right to travel, that's like such an obvious no-brainer. They're going to say something like, well, in the state of so-and-so, you're required to have a driver's license and a registered car and insurance. Now, let's stop there for a minute and think about what they just said. Wherever you are, whatever union state you are near, they are first and foremost a union state. That's all they are. They are a union state on American soil. They had their beginnings, as Sister Diana and I have also just demonstrated, just from simple historical reference. They had their beginnings as a company. Today they are a corporation that has signed on to the American Constitution, which is the supreme law of this land, American soil. Now, the reason they're signing on to the American Constitution is because they needed protection. The Moors of Great Britain. Not only did they need protection from their personal property, but they also needed protection so that they can continue to control those companies that they helped to establish. And they received that. Go ahead.
And that's what the Northwest Ordinance was all about, for them to be protected from their companies, because and they actually say for their purchases, because they were purchasing, companies, and to protect them with their property, because at that time, they sugar up the history a lot, but when you read, the Moors were not playing with them at all. They were kicking their butt left to right. Mm-hmm. They had slaughterhouses and vice versa, but the problem was we were not getting our butt kicked, per se, from the Europeans, but a lot of the Moors joined sides with them, and that's how they started winning a lot of battles. Because when I just read, every time I read it, they like getting ran out, kicked, beat up, and they, calling the British Moors at the time to help them, and then after the British Moors didn't help them, the British Moors just gave up full control over in this area, and then the Moors actually gained control with the Treaty of Peace and Friendship and the Constitution and the Congress, the first Congress. They were back in control, so to say, and on shaky fields, but still they were sending their military out to help the Europeans when they tried to settle in areas, and they tried to do surveys. They would kill those surveys left to right, and especially in the area of Hawaii. That's why it took so long for them to get over here, because every time, that's where they made the Northwest Ordinance, because they said, we're getting our buck, we can't, they're not letting us come in at all. So the military had to come. That's from the Congress, the United States of America. They came and helped the Europeans to settle right there, including Arthur St. Clair, who had originally helped, and and I think he regretted that at the end because he was just like, these people are out of control. And because in the letters that he wrote, and even in the letters that the people wrote, the main thing they were saying, the reason they didn't want to say it was because it was taxation without representation. They were trying to claim everybody to be inhabitants of the state, even if they were to create the state, and everybody didn't want it. Everybody wasn't inhabitants, and everybody didn't want to be inhabitants. Even the Europeans didn't want to be inhabitants of that state. It was only the ones who had an interest in the
company.
The company, and that's why it was only 200 on one petition and 2,000 on the other. But it's still the number wasn't that big compared to 45,000 inhabitants at that time, and that still wasn't enough. But just, after I did the history and the research, even after they became a company in 1803, it was some treaty made in 1803 that I think made them become, do what they did. And then in 1805, the head leader of the Moors, he had died, and he was like the chief. He was kicking butt, and so they got a little leeway. And then in 1807, another treaty was made, and that was with the Fox. I'm just naming what they put, but of course, these are family names with the Foxes, the Sox, and the Tuskegee one. I suck, but yeah, that was like the Indian tribe name. Called them, and that particular treaty was a trick treaty. And basically, they had gave up a lot of control with that treaty in 1807. This is 3 years. This is years after they so-called became a state, because technically they never was a state. So the people were still fighting. And then in 1811, there was a battle of it was a battle of something, but that was between the Moors in that area, and all the way to the War of 1812. If you look it up in the history, it's called the War of 1812. And that a big war, and that was towards the whole Northwest Territory, including Indiana Territory. All of those, that was a big war. And that, in history they say with the Shawnee and all of that, but I already know what that is. And
one of the significant pieces of information that I recall getting from the War of 1812 was the war that they used to go across the land and burn a lot of the historical documents that really clarified, what was going on in the position of the Aboriginal indigenous people here compared to the foreigners. And with a big chunk of that information gone, not that it changed anything, but when that information got intentionally destroyed, and then they started, murdering a lot of the Moors that had the information, and then they took the children and started indoctrinating the children. That's when the fall began in earnest. And when I say the fall, it's the fall of the mental consciousness of the Aboriginal indigenous people.
That's right.
Right, and it was the Battle of 1812 because they had because of a lot of Moors taking sides against the family.
Yeah.
All right, taking sides against the family and assisting these modern Europeans, and in the end, what happened is a lot of stuff got lost, so to speak, in translation. For example, whenever you hear the word grant, charter, patent, and even mortgage, those all demonstrate a rental or usage agreement, never, ever ownership. And it's amazing because today a lot of these United Europeans will say, well, you know, we was granted this land at a cost of X amount of dollars. And even if they are referencing real money, they still only exchange real money for the use, never ever purchasing and claiming ownership of the land. So whenever we see those words, we gotta know what exactly is being said, and we don't want to misconstrue what actually happened. And the only way that you're never going to be able to misconstrue that is you got to know that this is all about inheritance. Inheritance cannot be bought, sold, or transferred. And I just, and I also want to just reiterate, these are companies. They were companies when they were started. They are companies today. Now, what's really imperative here, what we are trying to show everyone, number one, you need to do the research for wherever you are. But this research is going to show you why they can never have territorial jurisdiction, why they can never have subject matter jurisdiction, why they can never have first common jurisdiction, because they are a corporation. And as has been documented in that wonderful document called the American Constitution, corporations can have zero superior claim over the people. The people will always have a superior claim over corporations, but that will only be valid if the people know. And if you watch what's going on today, we see across the nation people going to corporations and asking them, can I have this? Can I have that? Instead of going to these corporations and demanding, look, you have a constitutional obligation. You're bound and obligated to take care of the people. Now, you better take care of the people or we will shut you down.
When you say take care of the people, you mean to not violate their rights and their liberty.
Whatever. Because, like, for example, like a lot of these corporations, they're like, one of the things that they always do, because you got to remember, these corporations, they were established to make a profit, all right? But they were never given the right to make a profit at the expense of the people. But because nobody creates anything, nobody makes anything today, everybody is trying to create a profit off of the backs of the people. So, for example, every time they want to hedge their profit, they cut off what they're supposed to be given to the people that they're getting either from the feds or the international community. And so then you get the people going and asking the corporations, can I have this? Can I have that? No, the reason that they even still exist is because there are people.
Right.
I don't care what the corporation is. What I'm trying to say is I don't care what the corporation is. The only reason they exist is to administer what they have been given that belongs to the people. You see what I'm talking about?
They're just public trustees, etc. They weren't given anything. They're
right.
Exactly. And operate upon. Yeah. Okay.
Here's a perfect example. Many people have had interactions with so-called banks, all right? Mm-hmm. Banks, they only have the authority to act on behalf of the people, and the only thing that they can do is they can take what, like, for example, the people have delegated to the bank, I'm gonna hire you to perform a certain function. You work for me. All right? Now I'm going to give you this negotiable instrument, and I want you, because I'm busy, I want you to go to the Federal Reserve Bank. I want you to transact the business on my behalf. This is how we operated. They would go and transact the business. Off of transacting the business, they can take a percentage. Now, today, that percentage is 6%. So if I'm giving you a negotiable instrument and I'm saying I want you to go and transact and get me $100 worth of credit, because there's no money, they can come back and give you 94 and they take 6. Or they will give you, if we jot it down to like, yeah, that's right. They're going to give you $94. They're going to keep 6 for transacting the business. That's the only reason that they can even exist and call themselves a bank, is because they are providing a service. Right. But they wouldn't have a service to provide if it wasn't for the people.
Right.
But because the people don't know this, what they do is they give the people the $6 and they keep the 94.
Right. They've been doing it for so long, it's become good to them, you know. And controversy with them. Well, what will they do if they can't rip you off? What will they do if they don't do things? I think they got
many of these corporations, they're not even supposed to be in existence. None of the counties are supposed to be in existence. None of these police. There's no authority for police to exist. But people don't know that police are nothing more than corporate security guards with a gun. They're not supposed to have guns. And it's amazing because when I was doing some research, I found out, because I hear people talking about, are you a peace officer? I'm like, what are you talking about, a police officer? There's no such thing as a peace officer. What the hell is a peace officer? I just learned that when they delegated to the the municipal corporation, when they delegated to the municipal corporation the administering of the public safety program, the only authority that those municipal corporations have is to train these people to be peace officers. Peace officers. Today they're called police officers, which is an actual oxymoron.
Right.
They call them police, but they're supposed to be peace officers. There's nothing peaceful going on with these police, corporate security guards. But there's just a lot of information that we need to know about. But I'm going to say this. The one thing that you need to know about before you can really have a discussion about jurisdiction, you have to know who you're dealing with. How did they get here? How did they begin? Who are they exactly? And if you do the research like Sister Gianna and myself, and I believe Ms. has done it regarding the Atlantic Corporation, even New Jersey, if you do this, you will be absolutely amazed at who exactly you're dealing with. You're dealing with a freaking corporation, and if you get it into your head how you are dealing with a corporation, and then you look at that Constitution and why it was written, your whole perspective will change. Or it ought to.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a lot of inspirations for it to change once you recognize it, you know, and recognize that these, like you said, are de facto corporations that are fiending as government. So with that being said, they never really had jurisdiction ab initio to ever be considered in thought to even approve of anything that we're doing or anybody, you know, because these are foreigners. So, sure, when you recognize, and it, like I was saying earlier, it still goes back to why a bunch of wars popped off, a bunch of battles popped off. It was all about different aspects of the land, the resources, and the economics, you know. So when you look at the essence of corporations originated from and the history of them, you know, whereas there were different battles and things over different animals and their skins and all of these different things, they were trying to get an economic way of going back then, and they just kept it going, and including the natural people as products. So when you see that later manifest as all of these different township, county corporations, quasi-national domiciles, it's not really a surprise because this is who they always were. You know what I mean? That's exactly who they always were. And this is another thing. When you look at this, and not to get too far off, you know the saying, you know, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. And that's said by Noble Drew Ali, you are who your foremothers and forefathers are, without doubt or contradiction. As that rule applies and is fixed in the law of nature, it applies to the Europeans as well. So they are who their foremothers and forefathers are, which are immigrants that have absolutely no territorial jurisdiction on North American land, because they are who their parents were when they got here, who they probably claim to be Irish, Italian, etc. Just like the rule applies to us, it applies to them. Now, I know it's a bunch of different aspects of, you know, where they came from, but like I said, going back to what the sister was saying about the colonial aspects, there's a lot of self-evident truths, and one of them is that naturally there's a difference between us. Not that it makes anybody better than anybody else, but we have a difference in melanin for a reason. I'm not saying that makes everybody a good person. I'm just saying that is a self-evident truth. And, you know, there's definitely a lot of family differences. So, yeah, for sure, when you recognize that we are who our foremothers and forefathers were, and they are whatever they came from, they're that, it's clearly a distinction, you know. And when they came, they had business intentions, corporate intentions, to trade in furs and animals and other things of that nature, to possess land that they never possessed before, all of these things. So, yeah, just looking at the lineage of the corporations is no surprise. And with that, I yield the floor. Islam?
Islam. All right.
I wanted to say when he said the division, I mean, how we are different, and I was looking at a quote from Arthur St. Clair and one of the letters he wrote. He said once all of this started going down, because originally they were trying to be together in one territory, and that's why they made the Northwest Ordinance and the Constitution. And but he said that how necessary forever a division may be, and now how much forever it may be wished upon the people and, you know, each people, because originally it was supposed to be divided into two, and then once everything went down, it needed to be divided into three. And the reason probably being because it was the ones who wanted to have the corporation, and it was the Europeans who came and just wanted to live in peace, and then it was the Moors who were already there and didn't want them to be there anyway. So he said, well, how necessary forever a division may be, and now much forever it may be wished. And that's all.
Yeah. That's really the issue. The whole thing is, you know, what like I was saying before, you know, because the land is the ancestral estate of the Aboriginal indigenous people who are not. modern Europeans. They just are not. And they didn't, you know, and the nature of that is, as we see now, always wanting to conquer, always wanting to, you know, like it's a lot of, see, on a more vast and spiritual position, I think that the lower self activity is what is really inherent in them for various reasons. Well, one, because they were originally slaves, period, born into slavery at birth, really. And so that lower self activity, that's really the reflection of all the human characteristics and attributes of man and mankind, is rolled up into the reflection of, as you said earlier, those who may naturally be able to sustain on this earth plane, and then those who are the 180 of that, you know, and don't have the melanin, don't, you know, it's like this, they're the opposite of that, but it's really a reflection of our lower self. That's what it is, you know. So everywhere they go, they like, what, truthfully, we have to be honest when we do history. Everywhere they go as a family, however civilized they are or are not, they always want to take somebody's stuff, conquer, kill. And the Katara Divina does it, mentions it, says it. That is their intent. So who wants that? Who would, no, please, we don't want them here. So some, as you said, some words are like, no, we don't want that. And others are like, well, we got to, you know, bring peace because we are responsible in a great way for why all this is going down in the first place. Our own life lessons. So that's what it is. But when you really look at it, it doesn't matter where they go in any four corners of the earth. It is always, where's my stuff? Where's my, you know, always. The reverse is they want you to think that you are just roving in the you know, floundering on the earth with nowhere, no home, when this is your ancestral estate, and they're the ones who actually do not have such a thing. They don't have an ancestral estate. They don't. Ask them where their ancestral estate is. What are they going to tell you? Irish? No. What? Dutch? No. What? French? No. Because if you go and do the history, the Aboriginal Indigenous people are those who are melanated or Moors, the original navigators of the earth plane. So they're the ones without that. So it's like they go around angry all the time. They go around in a lower self vibration at all times. And it's really, when you really understand that, you see it so clearly. So clearly. But the real deal is that they are not able to sustain on the face of this earth as we are in the sun cycle coming back again. It's not going to happen. So this is why, no matter what it looks like, it's going to be in the hands of the Aboriginal Indigenous people. So we, as family, better really confess our own, you know, and make our claim, because many others are going to be trying to do that when they can't. So we really got to understand this and just be who we are, and that's really what this is all about. Come to teach yourself, take your place amongst the affairs of man, and so that you can link yourself back to all the families of nations, not the families of municipalities, not the families of quasi, you know, because the whole thing is these states are quasi-national domiciles, period. So how can you say you're a national and say you live in or a member of a quasi-national venue? You can't. That is, like, really ridiculous when you really look at what it is. And that's what time it is, you know?
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah.
So what we're gonna do, because we got like maybe actually we got like 45 minutes left. So what we're gonna do is open up the lines, and we're gonna take some questions. I know it was a lot of information, but it was done to inspire people. All right. So our first caller is caller 215-554. You're live on the air. Please state your appellation at Northwestern Exum. Caller 215-554.
Good evening. This is King Bay, my appellation, and I'm domiciled in the corporate New Jersey. And
you're near. You're near there.
Yeah, you're not domiciled in corporate New Jersey. Corporate New Jersey is on a piece of paper.
Corporation.
Say near, because it's near that corporation. That's what you say.
I say and amen. Thank you for that correction, sister.
Islam.
I just was building with a sister offline, and ironically, when I got back on the phone, Sister Anna E. was talking about these so-called banks, and we were discussing banking and finance, and one of the things that Sister Roz was saying about what the prophet said about, before it's all over, it's all going to be in the hands of the Moors. One of the things I just wanted to just touch on real briefly is when that time comes, in my opinion, one of the things is going to be a few things that we need to master. One of it is going to be what you mentioned, Roz, right words, jurisdiction, like mastery of the words and becoming wordsmiths and having overstanding and understanding of the words that we're using and the words that are being used upon us. That's something that even the Bible says, by your words you shall be justified, and by your words you shall also be condemned. It's like even the Creator was even trying to tell us, like, we need to master that. We need to master contracts. These are all things that a lot of our people have gotten away from because we've gotten so used to having our fancies tickled and having our ears tantalized and our eyes entertained with these TV shows and things of that nature. We've got away from reading and studying. We got to get back to that, mastering the right words, mastering the contracts, knowing what is a good contract and what is a bad contract, or knowing when you're not even in contract, knowing a basic contract law, which could hang you up, or if you have knowledge of it, your knowledge could get you out of it. And then knowing banking. Sister Anna E. was talking about the so-called banks. And she was so on point when she was talking about the way they run the paper, and they take the paper to Wall Street, and they do all these different type of sophisticated maneuvers with our paper where there is no money, but they'll use our signature to go get the substance when all they gave us was credit. And then they add another spin, and then they add another spin to it when they securitize it, and they'll end up with 5 or 10 times as much money as they said they were going to get, because they chopped it up and they did this long division, this tricky division. And then the last thing is learning banking and commerce, which is business. I believe that's something that a lot of our young people, we need to get back to training our young people somehow about business and commerce, like doing commerce, not just around the corner, but around the globe. I find it interesting that all the Moorish empires were set up near water where they were doing international trade and shipping and all throughout the world. Like, how can we get back to that? I'm in the process of mastering the UCC, and here again, we know that's not infallible, but, we're in this matrix. These are things, even if we're not going to operate in them, we really need to be aware of them. So I encourage people, all the brothers and sisters, when you get tired, and when you get weary, take a little break, get a snack, and like the prophet said, study some more, because at a certain point in time, when those lights start coming on, it's going to be an exciting time, and you're not going to want it to go off. You're going to want to study. You're going to want to study all night, which, Roz, you can attest to it. Miz, you can attest. You get in the zone. You just want to go in, and it's a beautiful thing when those lights start coming on, because you begin to see who you are. I don't know if it was you, Roz, that said about being, like you just got to be who you are. One of those guys talked about they don't call us human doings, they call us human beings. But how many of us know who we really are? We just have to be. We're being somebody else. We're being a hologram. We're being a fake version of who we really are. You know what I mean? Like, how about let's be a real being, and so I just want to encourage, people, the brothers and sisters, when you get tired, take a deep breath, stay at it, stick and stay with this program with the Sister Anna E and Sister Raj. Y'all doing a fantastic, fabulous job, you know, and you're being taught by masters. I don't know if you know how fortunate you are to have this venue to get this information at no cost whatsoever other than your time. Like, I pray a 1,000% return to you, Roz, to Sister Anna E, to Ms., because, you know, y'all doing it, and I appreciate you, and I just want to give you love and let you know, like, you know, I got your back, your front and your side. You know what I mean?
It's love. You know, it's funny when he was talking, I got to say this. It's funny when he was talking about being, just be. You know, I was talking with someone, was it today or yesterday? And it was in conjunction with when Ms. gave his presentation the last time we were at New York physically. And he said that person means a face mask. So I was talking with someone that said, you know what, we can't even use natural person. We can't use natural person or corporate person because we always hip hop people, and it's necessary to know, but there's also necessary to qualify that there is a corporate person and there's a natural person. But both of them are really under a certain jurisdictional person, because if we are spirit, then we're all on a face mask, if that's what person means, you know. So you have to say we're flesh and blood beings. We're flesh and blood living, breathing beings, you know, and so that there could be a clear distinction, and we're under none of those jurisdictions regarding that we are, in fact, being who we actually are by our Creator. And yes. So yeah, there's that distinction between there's two persons, and when you look up the definition, and then they tell you, yes, person can be a corporate person as it is meant in the 14th Amendment, and that right there should kill all the noise about civil rights, liberties, and civil rights, 14th Amendment. All that stuff should be down the drain with us by now, with anybody by now. And the other thing you had mentioned was UCCs. I had another conversation just today. We were talking about UCCs, and we were like, look, people use UCC -1. I might not say it right now because I stopped even thinking it. UCC 1-201 and what was 203 turned into 307 because they they changed it around and kind of confused you. A lot of people use that without knowing what it meant, and one of them means I will not enter into a contract that is not in harmony with nature or natural law. And the other one means I will not, somebody was scraping, I will not enter into any contract that is not in full disclosure. Well, that's what those two mean. So those two UCC things, they only bring this commerce thing back to common law or back to the Constitution. But in reality, you could just say all rights reserved, and it says the same thing. So we have to stop using the UCCs for anything regarding our position of that we take in reference to this, because the UCCs really were from ancient Moorish merchant laws, which got codified in around the 1960s or so. And so they'll change things around because they do all kinds of tricks. So we got to come up with pure, because we're a pure nation of people, we got to come out with pure right words, pure diction or jurisdiction, pure jurisdiction, right of words. And that's what we have to start doing, so that there's no tricks that can be played, so there's no way to get in between and assume anything, because a lot of things have already been assumed, and the only reason they have done this, that it has worked, is because of our lack of knowledge of not recognizing, one, that they're not government, they have no authority, and that what they just did was made an assumption, and you didn't know to correct it because you don't know any difference anyway. So I just wanted to add that to what you brought to the table. Islam.
All right, Islam. Yes. Thank you so much for that.
And I just wanted to say that, I just wanted to add on, it's important to know that there is a difference between a natural person and an artificial person, as making that distinction in your language, or natural people and artificial persons. Islam.
Yeah.
All right, Islam. Thank you so much for that call, brother.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Caller 803-406. You're live on the air. Please state your affiliation at Northwestern Maxim.
Islam.
Islam.
I'm from Northwestern Mexico. I live near South Carolina, and I just want to compliment you guys on all the education you've been given. And I have used my UCC 1-308. I have even told a lot of brothers and sisters about you from South Carolina. They have reached out to RVBey publication. I have one issue that I must ask. I didn't want to interrupt the class, but I've been fighting to get my card for over a year. I've been emailing at gnet.com or netgmail.com, and I'm not getting any results.
What is your affiliation?
From what?
Did you say cards, or did you say your cards?
My ID card, yes.
What is your appellation?
Herman Clifton Bay.
Oh, well, you know what? You need to send in. I just emailed you again. You need to send in you originally changed the appellation, and you need to send in. Your cards are waiting for you to send in the new autograph. You said you sent it, but where did you're not sending it obviously to the right place. Where are you sending it? Because I don't get it.
Gmail.com. A lot of this is my fault. I made quite a few errors, so I understand the problem. But I've been constantly.
I just emailed you the other day. I'm like, it's funny to me because I'll get an email every now and then from you saying, where's my cards? And I'll email you back and say, we need your autograph in red. And you can email it.
That's not getting to you, but I sent it. I sent it by mail a couple of times in a note with it.
Mail?
No. Yeah, he can write it out and just mail it to me. What you sent by mail, well, we can discuss. You know what? You got an email, but when I email you, you don't answer it back. It's so strange to me because you will email me with the inquiry, and then I'll email you back, and you won't answer me. So it's kind of weird. I'm like,
incarcerated child support, so I was away for 6 months. I had a friend trying to handle it for me. Matter of fact, he just got his card a while back, and now I have an email address. So what he did was text you or send you by email. I'm sorry, the change of address. And I said maybe this is confusing you, or you're wondering why it's so much change, but.
Nobody's going to handle your business better than you. You best believe. I've seen people attempt to do things for others, and they cannot express your intent the way you can express your intent. And, yes, they do bring confusion because they don't pay attention enough to detail. I mean, they just don't. I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying when you get someone else to do it, you can best believe they don't pay enough attention to the details in which you would like to express. So, with that being said, if you have availability to be in front, you said you were incarcerated, that explains a lot as to why you weren't answering back like so, and why you could not possibly be inside, write an autograph in red, scan it, and email it, but you possibly could have done it, put it in the envelope. But if you weren't getting that information the way in which I was expressing it, that explains that. So what I'm saying to you is, I want you to have it as much as you do. I was just looking at it, I'm like, what is with this? But now I understand. So what I want you to do is let's do this over the email. And I remember you mailed something, but it wasn't the right appellation that you had changed to, or maybe you sent someone else to mail it and they didn't mail the right thing. So I'll be glad. I'll put yours in the mail tomorrow if you send it early enough. I want you to have it. So, and I'm glad you brought that up because we had a broadcast about how many cards and applications we have where people did not provide an email to approve their draft, the draft copy, which we will not print it until it is. That's just normal with any printing of graphics, and or they didn't provide a phone number. But I'm getting a lot of response. A lot of people must be listening because since that time, a lot of people have said, oh, I ordered a card so-and-so. Could be a year ago, some of them. And I'm like, yep, we still got it. This is what we need from you or whatever. So why don't you email me? Email me, or I am confused about what is your email. You're right. So why don't you email me, all right?
Okay. Could you give me that?
I'm going to give it to you right now.
Okay.
As in Robert, V as in Victory, Bay, EY, Nat, N-A-T, card, not plural, not cards, Nat card, RVBey Nat card at gmail.com. And please use that email because that's the other problem that is a very annoying, is that email is on the application and people will email other email addresses and throws everything off, causes us to do double work. Some things definitely get missed because people aren't looking for anything that is in relationship to cards. They're not looking for it in RVBey orders, which is in relationship to books or products. And it really causes a problem when you send to the wrong email and causes hindrances. So RVBey Net card at gmail.com. You do that, and as soon as you do that, since you are now free, I'm glad you're out.
Thank you.
We can get this thing done, all right?
Okay, I'll stand. Well, you need that red signature is what you asked me to, or you just want me to email me.
Just do it. Yeah, just do it. That's all we need for you, unless there is a mailing location change, and if so, when you send that, also affirm what you want, where the mailing is, all right?
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much, and thank you guys for the knowledge you can give. Thank you so much.
All right. Peace and love. All right. Well, we don't have any more callers with their hands up, and we dropped a lot of information. It's midnight, 12:01.
I want to add something. Oh, go ahead. Are you going to do something else?
I was actually going to just end the broadcast,
Oh, all right. Well,
be back with everybody tomorrow for Moorish Heritage and History School.
Yeah. We do have that, but I do want to add one thing, and the only reason I'm adding this is because I've been we're all very busy. We answer a lot of emails, and we have a pulse on what's going on. And in conjunction with a lot of what we talked tonight, we want to make it very clear, and I think we've already said it. There are some people who are creating a trust and or a deed and or hold on, wait a minute. I just got it. Or saying that they're going to be doing the trust. And they said things like, for instance, what did they say? They said that the trust or the land is in the U.S. And I was like, wow. The ancestral estate is not in the U.S. The U.S. is a metaphor, and the U.S.A is also United States of America, not the American land. It's so important that people really read chapter 47, especially those who say they study the prophet's work, and we respect him for his work and for his thorough study on the subject matter of nationality, inheritance, and birthrights. So therefore, when you look at the maps and everything like that, you have to understand that the American land and the U.S. and the USA, they're not synonymous. They're not the same. They're operating upon that land. And so I just want to bring that home as we're trying to bring home that these people are not government. This is not the United States of America's land. They don't have land. They have no claim to the territory of the land. It's so important. And come up out of that and come up out of thinking you have to make a trust and understand that we are the trustees and the benefactors of an express trust, which means to express it, to make that claim. And that with knowing that we would not be putting in paperwork that has to be, sent to some corporation for approval and or for record in that respect. I mean, we could send in lawful notices to anyone, but for them to approve or authenticate it, we have to come up out of that. These people are not the government. So I just wanted to add that to I don't want to go into it too much. I wanted to just read the definition also of naturalization one more time, because some think that we should naturalize, which means that is the act by which an alien, that is the naturalization, the act by which an alien is made a citizen of the United States of America, the act of adopting a foreigner and clothing him with all the privileges of a native-born citizen. A nation, these are case laws I'm reading also as well as definitions. A nation or the sovereign who represents the nation may grant to a stranger the quality of a citizen by admitting him into the body of the political society. This is called naturalization. With that, the person who's doing the naturalization has to be from a nation, not a naturalization process. They cannot be a naturalized citizen themselves and then naturalize anybody ever, anywhere. Or they have to be the sovereign who represents the nation. They cannot be a naturalized citizen. All right? And if they're granting to a stranger the qualities of the native born, right, or to bring them into the body of the political society, well, what is the political society that they're bringing them into? They can't bring them into the Moorish nation if they themselves are naturalized, you see. And you are not a stranger in your own land or to your family. You are not an alien. So you do not want to be made a citizen of the United States of America. That's ridiculous. That is like really ridiculous. We established that for them to reside in, for them to domicile in as a quasi-national domicile. How you want to go and get in there with them? It's not possible. Mm-hmm. So the only way people can continue to do this naturalization is because they're not studying and somebody is telling them some crap, which are people wearing fezzes that will put them right back into slavery. And the prophet warned you. He said, be careful, Moors. Some of your own wearing turbans and fezzes will put you back into slavery. And that's exactly what happens if you're out there being naturalized. We just read the definition of it. It's right and exact. So.
I want to add something.
You and me is what I had something. Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, and you know what? It's almost to the point where we was talking about this a week or so ago, that this message has been stressed for a minute. It's going to get to the point where people are going to get left back because it's just imperative to move forward. Like I told you, we don't really go by the Gregorian calendar, but think about it. The year 2020, Gregorian calendar is not far away, and we have to have that 2020 vision looking forward, moving forward. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, come 2020 Gregorian calendar, if you still don't know that you're not Negro, black, and colored, you're going to get left back. It's not because there's so many people who do know, but then there's so many people who don't. But I'm telling you, the window is definitely closing to really understand who you are and your political power. I'm not making a judgment. I'm just telling you, 4 years from now, the mission will be the same, but it's going to be different. You know what I mean? If you don't get this now, what I'm saying is if you don't really pick this up now, you're going to get left behind. It's no different than any other school of thought, any other class, any other process of growth that you go to. There's so many Moors right now who get that they're not Negro, black, or colored. And then there's a lot who still think that they are Negro, black, and colored. What I'm saying is those who get that, those who know that we're Aboriginal indigenous to this land, that we should not be naturalizing, those who know that right now as we're talking, you know what I mean? They can't be held back 4 years from now. You know what I mean? It's a point where we're going to have to get active with what we know. And if those are still on the sideline trying to figure it out, they're just going to be there trying to figure it out because it's getting to that point where do we move forward with this now? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The message came over 100 years ago. And here we are today. We're getting it. We're doing the best we can to communicate it to others. But I'm just saying, those who are not getting it, you know, the opportunity to learn is always there, but it's going to be a time where you're just simply left back. You know what I mean? Because it's not going to stop others who do know about their nationality and birthright from moving forward. And if they use the excuse, well, they didn't come through this particular temple, therefore they're not this, that, and the third, y'all still going to be saying that 10, 15 years from now, and Moors are going to have better achievements because they understand their nationality and birthrights. So that's one thing I want to add on. You know what I mean? That you have to take heed. And also, I gotta just, I didn't know, you put me on to this, and this is a perfect example, and this is not just bragging. Cujo, the sister, everybody is perfect examples of what we should be doing with this information once you get it. Like the sister, Misery, did the video, the Pharaoh's Army video, official video. You know what I mean? But not just the fact that she shot at all of us out in her bars, that as a teacher, there's nothing more rewarding than to see a student get active with what they learned and exhibit that. You know what I mean? She's not sitting there calling and trying to beat somebody down about a nationality and birthright. Like, she's building on what she knows. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, take that as a case in point that Moors are going to be active with this information. You're going to be learning. But what I'm saying is, if you don't click on, and as a student with this fountain of information that's there, if you're not going to get busy with it, you will be left back. That's just the bottom line. So I just want to say salute to that video. It's a beautiful video. The concept, the thought process, I recognize all of that. But what I'm saying is that that's a prime example of a student and a teacher, the teacher appearing when the student is ready. So she got it. She got it. She's not calling somebody every day trying to figure something out. No, she picked up the information, she digested it, and then she regurgitated it.
It back out.
There's nothing more rewarding. So with that being said, salute to all active Moors worldwide. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, years from now, these active Moors are not going to keep getting overlooked more than these Moors on the sideline who's talking shit, excuse my expression, because these active Moors is what needs to be the center of the conversation. They have a message, you know what I mean? And it's not just because they said certain something you like. No, like they have a message. So we're not going to keep overlooking the messages positive that's out there to keep looking at these naysayers. That's just it. That's what I mean by certain people are going to be left back, and that's just going to be the end of that because people are moving forward. And with that,
and with that, and I just want to say, and that goes along with the prophet saying we want active Moors, not passive ones. And also, I like your analogy about 2020 because that means 2020 vision, and it's coming up on us, and we got to have it. Yeah, that's beautiful.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a prime example of, you know what I mean, okay, not okay, but all right, somebody is doing something with the message. Cujo as well, no disrespect. He does great music. He's doing something with the message. You know what I mean? Granted, sometimes we might talk about certain things and remedies, but the fact is we learned how to teach ourselves. That's the thing that's really being taught is how to teach yourself. And when you do that, you know what I mean, you might have some questions, but for the most part, in your sojourn, you're going to answer your own questions. Not to say you shouldn't ask them. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, you know, once you're on a path and you make this information your own, you know, you make it your own because that's what it's about. It's yours. You know what I mean? Then we'll see you act it. And that's what I'm just serious, that's what the reward is. Like, we're not sitting here saying this nothing. Like, do something with this information. Get busy. You know what I mean? Get busy. That's it. Yeah. Even if you're sitting still getting busy, get busy. Do something with it. You know what I mean?
Sister Gianna wanted to make a comment. You there, Gianna?
Oh, my fault. It's not.
Yeah, I'm good. Oh, no, you good. I originally wanted to make a comment off of Ross, but I just wanted to say something now and him said that about the getting left behind. And when he was speaking, I was speaking about a prophet, a statement that Prophet Noble Drew has said. And this, I'm not quoting from word, but this is just something, you know, off the top of my head. And if you guys know it, of course you can correct me. But he said something to the extent that he was on a soul plane, and he remembered being Noah, and there was people trying to get into the boat, and he told them that an angel came and took the key away. And basically he's saying that about that time, you know, if anybody know the story of Noah, that he warned the people and he told them and people told him, and so if you didn't get it then the time is too late, you know. And so I just thought about that.
But there's something dangerous about that. There's something dangerous about, I mean, there really is. It's hard to explain without being biased, nor are you being discriminating. I think you guys are saying it best. You're just going to be left back. So therefore, if you're on some other mission and the persons that are with you are not equipped to be in that, you know what I mean? Like they didn't pass the grade, so they can't move forward. It doesn't mean you don't assist them, because the classes and the teaching and the information is there and always has been for you to grasp. So it's not like someone's taking something away. It's like you got to go back to the classroom and get the information so that you can graduate to be in wherever it is that it is. Otherwise than that, you can be dangerous to the mission. You could be dangerous to whatever's going on at the time, and that's why the key was taken away. Wait a minute, you didn't pass third grade, so therefore you can't be sitting up in the sixth grade. You know what I'm saying? That's really what it's Yes, that's all that it is. You know, that's all that it is, and there's nothing else, and that's not judgment. That's just the way it goes. That's fact. That can't be changed.
And I wanted to also make a comment. For earlier, Sister Roz, you were talking about how a lot of people write to corporations and different businesses, basically trying to get approval from them or some type of approval from the corporation to do whatever it is or be whoever you say you are, anything. And I'm sitting and I'm thinking that if you really read some of the mail that you get from these people and these corporations, whether you in something or out of something, half of the time, 90% of the time, what they are sending you is really asking you for your approval and your and for you to accept whatever it is that they need to do. And the problem is that you know, a lot of us are just now learning how to truly read lawfully and to really understand what it is that they're sending them. And so they don't see it, but the corporations are sending us instruments asking us for approval of whatever it is that they're trying to do and get or whatever. And we always missed it and automatically waive the rights or waive that window, and it closes before we even respond, or sometimes people never ever respond because they didn't get it that was actually a request from you. I mean, from them trying to get whatever
was made to them. Like they don't realize that, like you're saying, whatever they sent you in writing, that's why they say read what they said and answer it verbatim. Answer it or rebut it or whatever. They don't realize what you're saying is they don't realize that whatever was sent to you was really a presentment and an offer that you don't have to accept, but because they think these people are authority in government, they accept it. And then they're like, okay.
Yeah, they accept it, and they don't even know. Yeah, and just on another note, what Mia is talking about, just getting what you know and whatever you know, wherever you at, and just using that, what you know, and let that be that. I had an experience where I had some knowledge of jurisdiction, and I remember I told Sister Annie about this, that after I sent my reading in or whatever, the situation, and the people tried to bring me into court, and they have found that the sheriffs, they would not serve me because I was out of the jurisdiction. So I had never had to go to court. Eventually it was dismissed, but the fact is that I just used what I knew and just went with that and stood on it, and it just really it really came in my favor because they weren't able to serve me for lack of jurisdiction.
Wow. There you go. Just like you said, you used it and you sat on it till the cows came home. And that's the only way.
Yeah, and I wasn't moving, right? You'd be like, whatever they say, whatever they said, you know, you just keep sending, or sometimes keep sending the same thing, keep saying the same thing. I do that all the time. They'll send me something else, and they're trying to fight something with me, and I'll send them back the same thing I send them again. You still haven't answered my question. You still haven't proven jurisdiction. You still haven't. And sometimes you don't even have to rewrite or rewrite or do anything. Just resend it. They keep sending you. You keep sending it right back to them. You know. Seriously. Yeah. Eventually they whatever. And then sometimes they're trying to switch it up, change it up, and I just
say it different.
Did the same.
Say it different. They try to say it
in a different
right?
way. Yeah, the same thing in a different way. And I literally just went through this. They sent me something from some so-called Ohio taxes, whatever, and requesting some information from me, talking about that this was just something that they do for fraud, to make sure that that people, you know, protection from fraud or whatever. So they do this every year, they say, and whoop-de-whoop. And they did. They did it last year, and last year I just simply wrote them, literally, it was probably 3 lines, and all it said was, you know, I thank you for your concern, but at this time my identity has not been stolen, and I didn't see anything in that matter of or any claim that my identity has been stolen. So, you know, as I had a right, I waived these. I mean, I have the right to not whatever it is that they want. They wanted me to take a survey, whatever, and to prove that I am whoever I say I am. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah. They wanted me to take a survey, and I said, well, and I wrote them and said, yeah, I haven't sent any claim and this and that, but I thank you for your concern. And and you know, 2 days later, you know, I got a check. I was like, oh, okay. And then so they did it again this year, but in a different way. And I just sent them exactly the same thing I sent them last year. You know, I'm just, you know, some things it's not even that hard. It's just simple stuff. Hey, I didn't file, or I don't have a claim, and I'm not in receipt of anybody claiming identity theft. So, you know, so that's that.
Well, you know, when you mentioned text, I just want to say this one thing before we hang up, because I think I spoke with someone through text, through email regarding they had written and said that they, on their job, the job told them that that the job has to take out, what was it, SSN or some state level something, but as far as the federal level taxes, you know, they'll stop doing that. But they have to take out state. So I wrote them back and I said, listen, they're telling you what they have to do, because they have an agreement when they register to do business or whatever with whatever respective state, that agreed that they would pay those things. Don't let them pass that on to you. They didn't lie to you when they said they have to, because that's what they are required to do. But that's not what you are required to do, so you got to hit them back. Don't let them leave you with that, you know. But again, with the full one, right.
Another thing they could do with the state is just simply say they're not a resident. That's what I did. I just wasn't a resident of their state. I mean, you know, I don't know. You know, every situation is always different. They may have to prove that, but you know, with me,
but
when I did it,
they didn't do that. They probably didn't do that. And they asked, they asked, where do you live on something? I live in, you know, New York or whatever. So there's a contradiction. But you're right, because, you know, you take mail at a mailing location, you lay your head wherever, but they probably didn't know what you just said to say. I am not a resident / member / citizen of the state of whatever, therefore, if they don't know to say that, and then somewhere else in documents they admit to being a resident of it. So it's all thorough. Right, exactly.
And they have to make sure they put it in writing and mail it. Even if, you know, say it and mail it. Always mail it. Even if it's 2 lines on the paper. If you say, I'm not a resident of Ohio, here you go, and mail it. Mail it.
Right, exactly. And yes, right. Interesting you should say that, too, because some people are saying, they won't accept my proclamation, my name change, and my judicial notice and proclamation at some county level or whatever. I'm like, well, why do you have to give them that? You know, notice to the agent.
Just like you before when your appellation was whatever, and you didn't go and give them no paper and say my appellation was Jim Jones. So why would you have to give them a paper saying your appellation is Jim Bay? It doesn't matter. I did the same thing. Just go exactly who you are. If they don't ask for no information, don't give them no information.
Right. And just see, that's the thing, and I think we can end this on this.
T-Mobile's unlimited plan costs $95 per month for a smaller network, plus monthly taxes